Concierge. Hello, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan, I'm the concierge. Trying something a little bit different today. I want to do some 2500 content, so I'm just trying some things out with that. And I thought I was also doing some work on it this morning, working on a track for the new beat tape. So I thought I might as well just capture some content whilst I'm doing it. I haven't really worked out a decent way to get the screen yet. I'm thinking I'm probably going to need a camera behind me on that side or that side. But, you know, I still want it to look good. I know that sounds, you know, it's a bit, you know, like, what does it matter what it looks like? I do think it still matters. It matters to me what it looks like. So I don't really want a camera in shot here over my shoulder, but potentially I could put one here with a zoom lens on it to zoom in on the screen. So, because obviously if I'm doing content on the 2500, I want it to be, you need to be able to see the screen, obviously. But today, I'm just going to take you through a track that I've been working on, just explain it a little bit, go through some of the processes that I've gone through. It's a new track for beat tape. It's very, very sweaty in here today, despite the fact that I've got the AC on, and despite the fact that it's actually winter in Dubai, but it's still about 20 degrees outside and about 25 degrees inside, even with the AC on. So this is why I've got this classic glasses fall down my nose, which I always seem to have when it's sweaty. Buy some glasses that fit you, Conan, you may say. Well, yes, I could do that, but I don't. So this is a track that it's going to be better if I put my headphones on. This is a track that I'm working on for the new beat tape. I've got a bunch of Japanese like detective films from the 70s albums. I've got loads of them. I found somewhere where I can get them really, really cheap. So I just kind of buy them in bulk, like 10 at a time, get them shipped over from Japan and then flick through them. And there's normally at least one good thing, maybe two or three good things on each album. And this is off one of those albums. And what I've done is, well, I'll break it down for you. First, I'll show you what I've done so far with the samples. So that's the actual original loop. So I've just chopped it up into 8 pieces, just, you know, standard quarter note chops. Now, it's funny because the other day in MPC Mix and Master Group on Facebook, shout out to you guys, somebody was asking the question, why people take a sample, chop it up, and then play it back in order. And I gave quite a detailed explanation for that, and I'm not going to go into that exact explanation, but one of the reasons why I do it, and it's one of the reasons why I've done it today, is I like to be able to mess about with the groove. So you're still playing it in order pretty much, where you make it sound like it's in order. You keep the chord progression the same. I'm not really a massive fan of the choppy, like chops thing. I love Dilla, obviously, who doesn't? And he is the master of doing that, but he does it in such a way where it still sounds cohesive. It still sounds like one track. Alchemist is good at doing that. Madlib's good at doing that. But I'm not a fan of taking a sample, chopping it into micro chops, and then just playing it all over the place just so that you can say, I flipped it. That's just not my thing. If that's your thing, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's not my thing. Most of the time, I would say 80%, maybe even more, play in order, but I still chop it up. And the reason why I still chop it up is because I like to mess with the groove. So for instance, to give you an idea, if I play this exactly as it is, trying to get the tempo exactly right, a little bit of a gap. So that's how it's played. It's quite laid back. But what I like to do is I like to basically kind of speed up the tempo. So let's say, for instance, that the track is at 87 BPM. If you push it to like 88, 89, but play it in order, you give the sample sort of, you inject a swing and a groove into the sample, and what you can do is you can kind of create tension almost, because you're driving the sample forward. It kind of feels like the sample is being driven and has got some urgency to it. So I like doing that a lot with samples, and that's one of the main reasons why I still chop things up even if I'm going to be playing them in order. But again, another thing I like to do by chopping them up is still play it in order so to speak, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute because it's what I've done with this sample, but I'll play it in such a way where it can extend the actual sample. Now, if you listen to the original chop, okay, so that's just one bar. But the way that I've chopped it up, if I just solo here, I've made it stretch out, the same thing, the same chord progression, but I've made it stretch out over 2 bars. So the first part, that part, I've stretched out over 2 bars by playing the middle part over and over, and then I've stretched out the second part in the same way. So I've basically turned a 2-bar loop into a 4-bar loop, but still made it sound cohesive, still made it sound like it's actually the original sample, which is really, really what I like doing. I like my chops to be buttery smooth. I don't like choppy. I'm just not into it. I like to be honest with you, is one of the main reasons why I love the 2500. Why I had the 2500 in storage for so long, I do not know why, because as soon as I got it out of storage, 15 years it was, as soon as I started chopping things up in it, although it is a little bit more of a pain to chop things up than the new gen MPCs, it's still pretty easy to chop things up. But as soon as I started chopping things up and I started putting things together, I realized why I love the 2500. There's a reason why I like the 2000 XL and there's a reason why I like the 2500. One of the main reasons why I love the 2500 is it makes your chops sound buttery smooth. Or maybe I can make my chops sound buttery smooth in it. I'm not saying everyone can do that, but I can make my chops sound buttery smooth on the 2500. And to be honest, listening to a lot of Alchemist, for instance, because obviously we all know Alchemist uses a 2500. If you listen to his chops, they are also buttery smooth. So is it the 2500 that does it, or is it the man behind the beat? I don't know. I like to think that I do play a part in it. But there's something that the 2500 does when you chop things up that I don't get from the 2000 XL. Now, I like the 2000 XL for a different reason. The 2000 XL for me is very dark, gritty, and grungy almost. Not necessarily the sound, but just by the way that you have to chop things up. Things do sound a little bit more, they sound a little less cohesive. You can still get them to sound cohesive, but there's not, it glues things together in a different way. It's really difficult to explain, but you don't get the same buttery smoothness that, I don't get the same buttery smoothness that I do get with the 2500. On the XL, it's a bit more, like if I want to make some Pete Rock style boom bap or Damu the Fudge Monk, that kind of stuff, I will go for the XL every single time. But if I want to chop up samples and get them to sound glued and smooth and, you know, for the drumless stuff, for instance, I am going forward always going to use a 2500. And I could do it on the MPC One and the Live II. But there's just something about the 2500 that just makes things, for me, just sound buttery. It just glues things together. I don't want to say converters, but it could be the converters. It could be something to do with it. But most of all, I think it's because I'm used to chopping things up in it. So I can make it sound buttery. And I have little techniques, which I am going to do a tutorial on, as to how I can get the chops to sound a bit more buttery and a bit less choppy. So as I was saying, I've taken this 1 bar and I've made it into 2 bars. Something like that. So I'll play that in solo first because I have actually put a beat over the top of it. And you see what I've also done as well is with that end bit, rather than have it sitting on the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got it sitting on the 4.5 as such, so it's going. Because again, it's giving it that urgency. But do you hear what I mean by the fact that I've actually got the tempo of the loop faster than the actual track is, and therefore it gives it a bit of urgency. And it's giving it swing. Listen to the ride cymbal. If you listen on headphones, you can hear it. There's a ride cymbal. The drummer's playing all the way through it. And because I've chopped it in such a way, but the quarter notes are actually being driven a bit faster than they should be, it's giving it a little bit of urgency and a little bit of swing. And then what I've done is I've laid a beat over the top. But another thing that I love doing with this kind of stuff, for instance, not so much with the boom bap kind of stuff, which is, you know, the Pete Rock Damu type sort of thing, but more with this, what some people call drumless, but I just call hip hop or boom bap or whatever you want to call it, is I use the drum beat to enhance the original sample. So the drum beat that I've done is very, very simple. I've used all the sounds are sampled off breaks. One of the things I love to do is to literally take 10 random breaks, because I've got thousands, literally take 10 out and then just chop them, get the snares, the hats, the toms, the rolls, the kicks, whatever noises there might be in there, chop them all up and then just make a kit and then just throw that kit in a folder, make another kit, throw that kit in a folder. I like that. Like sometimes I do specifically look for a particular drum, and I have folders where I think to myself, right, I need a really boomy kick. So I know where to go for that. I need a real kind of primo Pete Rock style snare drum with a bit of reverb on it. I know where to go for that. I've got those put aside, but I like building these kits, which are almost kind of like random kits, because I find sometimes that if you've got too many sounds to go through, it kind of messes with your creativity. So I like to just almost give myself a restrictive amount. Like, you know, these kits won't even be 64 pads. They'll be 32, sometimes even 16. I mean, this is 16. There's nothing that's 16 on here. And I know that it's kind of, I've put it in my kind of laid back, relaxy type beat folder. So the sounds are all kind of tame. They're all kind of laid back. There's nothing like really, really heavy there. But I'll use these kind of kits to supplement a sample like this anyway. Obviously it'd be different depending on the sample. But so what I've done is, if I go back there and mute that. See, really, really simple. And to be honest, on its own, there's no effects or compression or anything like that at the moment, but it sounds a little bit shit, to be honest. And even I'll admit that, and I made the beat, but the point of it isn't for it to be, it's a standalone drum beat. The point of it is to be part of the sample. Because also what I know is that when I bounce that into my DAW, I have the individual sounds which I can EQ and compress alongside the sample. Because there's obviously quite, the drums in the sample are quite in your face as well. If you listen to the sample on its own, listen to the snare drums especially. So I knew that there was no point really in, if I wanted to supplement it, the snare drum had to kind of sit with that snare drum. It couldn't be too in your face. So that's why I've chosen those kind of more laid back sounds. But I know that if I've got them individually, when I bounce them into my DAW, I'm going to be able to EQ and compress them separately to the actual sample, because what I might want to do with a sample might not fit in with what I want to do with the drums. So I can boost the low end on the kick, I can take the low end out on the snare, I can add some reverb or whatever maybe on the snare, I can spread the hats to the sides if I want. So just having, you know, I would quite happily, to be honest, put this track on a beat tape as it is without any drums over the top. And just do something like that over the top of it. But I just wanted to enhance it a little bit, just to give it a little bit more body, I guess, and a little bit more to play with. Having the ability to be able to just filter the the entire program, because you can't do things like that on the 2000 XL, etc. It's filters on the pad. There's workarounds, but it's more difficult. On the 2500, you can actually apply the filter to the entire program. But I like, I like that old technique of taking all the high end out, using a low pass filter and just having the sample playing underneath, but sort of bubbling underneath, just the bass end of the sample, whilst a rapper is over the top of it, for instance, or maybe some dialogue or whatever you want to do with the track. And then I guess in the chorus, you bring the sample back up again. So it can bubble away underneath like that. So all these things go through my head when I'm putting a track together. I think for me, it's like chess. I'm thinking so far in advance because I guess for me, it's easier because I've been doing this for 40 years, but I think of it, I already know where it's going. Not 100%. You can wander off the path a little bit sometimes and walk a parallel path and you end up somewhere that you didn't think you're going to end up. And I like to do that sometimes. But generally, as a rule, I've found that the tracks that I've actually taken to the point where I finish and release them, they've been tracks that quite early on in the process, I've already got a direction. I already know how it's going to sound. So when I do all these things, the initial part, this is just what I call the writing stage, the preliminaries, I guess, where I'm just putting the sample together, I'm doing the chops, I'm adding the drum beat over the top. Those for me are just preliminaries. The secondaries come later on. This is in my workflow, which I'm making videos about at the moment. But I'm still thinking ahead. I'm still thinking about the secondaries. I'm still thinking that, for instance, do I stick with the theme of Japanese detective films? Do I sample some stuff out of some kung fu films or some old Japanese TV shows, or do I send it out to some people, see if they want to write some lyrics for it? Do I keep it just 100% instrumental and laid back? Am I going to add loads of effects to the sample? Am I going to enhance the beat more? Am I going to add maybe a break later on? All those kind of things. I'm already thinking those steps ahead whilst I'm actually making the track. And if I do look back, like I said, thinking about it, all the tracks which I've actually finished, that I've actually released, I do tend to have a pretty good idea very early on in the process where I'm actually going to take that track.
Serge.